Hey there, true believers. Watch as once again frightening forces are at work in our world, ready to wreak havoc with our very existence. Who or what prowls the halls of Empire State University after dark? None other than the master of illusion himself, the menacing Mysterio.
The tablet of order and chaos. Selling you on the black market is gonna make me a mint.
Good, you can use a mint. Ugh, I can smell your breath from here.
Spider-Man?
Wait, how would you eat a mint through that fishbowl? Nice! Don't get me wrong, your illusions are nifty and all, but if you ask me, they could use a little more kick. Nah, souvenirs are available in the gift shop.
Stop it! Cease your incessant prattling!
But an incessant is the best kind of prattle.
What? What's this?
Hey, Bubblehead, think fast!
Welcome back to the channel, webheads. I brought it up a few times in the past, but the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. And a big part of that comes down to how relatable he is. He's not a billionaire, he's not a god, he's just a regular guy trying to get through life like the rest of us. Peter's gotta pay rent, deal with a boss who treats him like crap, keep his relationships from falling apart, and still somehow save the city on top of all that. He messes up, but he owns it. He learns from it. That whole with great power comes great responsibility thing really sticks with you when you see how much Peter sacrifices just to do the right thing. He's strong, sure, but he's not invincible. There's always this sense that he might not make it out of a fight, and that vulnerability makes his victories feel earned. Even after all these years, his powers still feel unique. Swinging through the city, sticking to walls, using his brain just as much as his fists. Throw in that iconic costume, and you get a hero who doesn't just look cool, but feels like someone you could be. That's always been the magic of Spider-Man. It's not just that anyone could wear the mask, it's that you could imagine yourself wearing it too. Due to that, even when it's not Peter Parker under the suit, you know that whoever is wearing it will uphold and honor the legacy of Spider-Man. Unless they're a villain intentionally trying to ruin his reputation, like Chameleon or Venom. Needless to say, because I love the webheads so much, growing up I would get sucked in by all the various comics, cartoons, movies, and of course video games starring the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Before Arkham Asylum set a new standard for what a good superhero game could be, most licensed titles featuring a comic hero ranged in quality from average at best to absolute garbage. While Spidey games were no exception, I'd argue most were great and memorable experiences, with several standout examples that were released far before the critically acclaimed Spider-Man series from Insomniac. And today I want to talk about one that doesn't get nearly enough love. A game that brought together alternate versions of Spidey and ended up inspiring the 2014 Spider-Verse comics, and by extension, the Into the Spider-Verse movies. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Of course, the idea of different Spider-Men teaming up to save the multiverse wasn't totally new. Spider-Man the animated series actually did it first with its two-part finale, but Shattered Dimensions was the first time we got to play that kind of crossover. Launched back in 2010, Shattered Dimensions was developed by Beanox and published by Activision, and dropped on pretty much everything at the time. PS3, Xbox 360, PC, the Wii, and even a version on the DS. It brought together 4 unique takes on the character, each with their own style, gameplay, and vibe, and somehow made it all work. It was creative, different, and honestly one of the more interesting swings the franchise ever took in the gaming space. So let's take a look at what made it so fun, helped it stand out compared to other Spidey titles, and finally how, despite its age, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions is still one of the best and most memorable Spidey experiences. Also, don't forget to like and comment, subscribe if you're new, and turn on that bell to get notifications when a new video drops.
No, Spidey, it's just the beginning. Across many dimensions, these 4 fearless Spider-Men, in all their various incarnations, must fight to reassemble the Tablet of Order and Chaos. Not just for the sake of their own worlds, but for the fate of every world, in every dimension. Good luck, web-slingers. We're all counting on you.
Unfortunately, like a lot of older superhero games, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions isn't the easiest game to get your hands on. It was delisted from digital storefronts back in 2014, and physical copies vary wildly in price depending on the platform, assuming you even own the console to play it. For this video, I opted to sail the 7 seas and track down a copy of the PC version. I can't link to it directly, but you can find a cracked version over on the Internet Archive. Outside of needing to install a separate patch to get it running at higher resolutions, Shattered Dimensions plays surprisingly well. Aside from a couple bugs and crashes, the only real issue I ran into was trying to use a controller. The game technically supports it, but for whatever reason they kept randomly switching the controller bindings mid-game, which completely messed with the inputs. I couldn't figure out what was causing it, so I ended up using keyboard and mouse for my playthrough. Not terrible, but it does take a little time to get used to. The story of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions kicks off with a battle between Spidey and Mysterio over a mysterious artifact called the Tablet of Order and Chaos. During the fight, the tablet gets shattered into several pieces, and those fragments end up scattered across different dimensions, each one warping reality and falling into the hands of dangerous villains. To prevent total chaos, Madam Web steps in and reaches out to 4 different versions of Spider-Man across the multiverse. Each one is tasked with tracking down the tablet fragments in their own world and facing off against dimension-specific villains who've been empowered by the shards. What follows is a dimension-hopping adventure where each Spidey brings their own style and strengths to the table, all working toward one goal: restoring the tablet and putting the multiverse back in order. Oh, and to stop Mysterio too. There's not much to the story outside of the initial setup. No dramatic plot twists or in-depth character arcs. It's really just a springboard to offer up 4 different Spider-Men with their own unique dimensions, villains, and gameplay styles. Which honestly I'm totally cool with. It not only allows for a shorter video, but also lets me keep the focus on the gameplay while also gushing about Spider-Man. Wanting the game to be a true love letter to Spider-Man fans, each version of Spidey is voiced by an actor who's played the character before. The main Spider-Man from the Amazing Universe, the one who accidentally kicks off this whole tablet hunting mess in the first place, is voiced by Neil Patrick Harris.
Here's $50 for the burgers and $200 for the car.
What happened to my car?
I made some love stains in the back seat. You'll see.
While most people know him from his roles on Doogie Howser, the Harold and Kumar movies, or the most obvious, How I Met Your Mother, many might not realize he also voiced Peter Parker in the short-lived but criminally underrated Spider-Man the New Animated Series, also known as MTV Spider-Man. Holy shit, that intro still slaps. Originally conceived as a continuation of Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie, before becoming its own thing, the series was a much more mature take on the character compared to earlier cartoons. It leaned into a darker, more dramatic tone, with edgier interpretations of classic villains, like a creepier, more intense version of Electro. Weirdly enough, it even acted as a bit of a bridge between Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, since Michael Clark Duncan, who played Kingpin in Daredevil, reprised the role in the animated series. Sadly, the darker tone ended up being the show's undoing. It was too mature for kids, and the older audience MTV was targeting wasn't exactly lining up for a CG Spider-Man cartoon. Which is a damn shame, because the show had a ton of potential. And, like a lot of Spider-Man cartoons I'm now realizing, it ended on a cliffhanger. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend giving it a watch. It used to be available on Disney+, but thankfully the Internet Archive comes in clutch again. You can download all 13 episodes from there. NPH delivers a great performance as the Amazing Spider-Man, slipping back into the role with ease and bringing a sarcastic, slightly hammy energy to the webhead that fits the tone of the game perfectly. Our next Spidey hails from the darker noir universe, voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes, the same actor who played Peter Parker in the iconic Spider-Man the Animated Series from the 90s. While the debate over who the definitive voice of Spider-Man is has shifted in recent years, especially with Yuri Lowenthal and Josh Keaton being the top picks for a lot of newer fans, for me, it'll always be Barnes. He played an older, college-age Spider-Man who felt experienced but still vulnerable, and he managed to strike a perfect balance between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. There's a clear distinction between the two, similar to what Kevin Conroy did with Bruce Wayne and Batman. Instead of portraying Peter as the usual shy, awkward nerd, Barnes made him more assertive, confident in his intelligence, but also kind of a flake. Brilliant but lazy, you could say. As Spider-Man, he had the wit and quips you'd expect, but also carried a seriousness and strong sense of responsibility that made him a natural leader, especially during the show's many crossovers and team-ups. What really made his take stand out, though, was the anger and emotional weight he brought to the role. You don't often see that side of Spider-Man unless he's wearing the symbiote or dealing with a personal tragedy, but Barnes' version showed a Peter who was constantly frustrated, torn between his responsibilities and the sacrifices they demanded. He hated being used by higher powers like the Beyonder or Madam Web, and he didn't hesitate to question why he had to be the one to carry the burden, just because some cosmic force said so. The animated series was a huge part of my childhood, right up there with X-Men the Animated Series. And despite being a kid's show with all kinds of weird restrictions, they couldn't show blood, people dying, or even Spider-Man disturbing some pigeons for some reason, it still managed to be surprisingly mature. It showed that even though Peter had learned the hard lesson of with great power comes great responsibility, after Uncle Ben's death, he was still human. He had limits, and sometimes trying to live up to that ideal took everything he had, and then some.
Night on the waterfront. On the docks, rats scurry about their grim business. A tip from Felicia Hardy brought me here. Looks like she was onto something.
Barnes brings that more human and darker take in his performance as Spider-Man Noir. The Noir universe is a much darker take on the world of Spider-Man, both literally and thematically. Spider-Man Noir was first introduced in 2009 as part of Marvel's Noir line of comics, which reimagined popular characters in a gritty 1930s Pulp Fiction setting. Instead of the bright and colorful New York City we're used to, this version takes place during the Great Depression, where crime, corruption, and political unrest are everywhere. There are no high-tech gadgets or advanced science experiments, just a lot of trench coats, Tommy guns, and shadowy black alleys. In this world, Peter Parker is still a young man trying to do the right thing, but his origin story is a lot more grounded and brutal. After the death of his Uncle Ben, killed in retaliation by one of New York City's businessmen for organizing a strike on sweatshops, Peter becomes the protege for Ben Urich, a reporter at the Daily Bugle, and the two explore the dire situation of New York City's denizens, and uncovering the criminal exploits of the man who ordered his uncle's death, Norman Osborn, aka the Goblin. After Peter mistakenly received a tip meant for Urich, he ventured to a warehouse where the Goblin's men were unloading a shipment of stolen antiques. One of these stolen relics, a spider idol, broke open and released a horde of spiders, one of which bit Peter, causing him to pass out and dream of a spider god. After waking up, Peter discovers he now has spider powers. Donning a mask, he'd adopt the persona of Spider-Man, in order to take the fight to New York's crime bosses. But this Peter's more cynical and intense than the traditional version. He's not above using intimidation or even lethal force if the situation calls for it. He still believes in justice, but in a world as broken as his, he knows sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Honestly, as much as I liked Nick Cage as Noir in the Spider-Verse movies, I wish we had gotten a darker take closer to the comics. Though, who knows, maybe the upcoming live-action series will be more faithful to the tone of Spider-Man Noir. Our next webhead hails from the Ultimate Universe, with Josh Keaton once again playing a younger and more inexperienced Peter Parker, fresh off the cancellation of Spectacular Spider-Man, which many consider the definitive Spider-Man cartoon. While I'm sure fans are still hurting from the show's unceremonious cancellation, almost 15 years later, and I feel your pain, I must respectfully disagree. The 90s animated series is still the GOAT. Spectacular is an extremely close second place though. It followed a high school age Peter Parker still figuring out the balance between his personal life and superhero responsibilities, combining sharp writing, great character development, and fast-paced action. The animation style was simple but expressive, and leagues better than the 90s series, which could be stiff at times, would recycle animation, and used a lot of shoddy CG, mostly when Spidey was swinging around New York. It managed to adapt iconic Spidey storylines while still putting its own fresh spin on the mythology, and took more cues from the recent Ultimate Universe instead of classic Spider-Man, making Josh Keaton the obvious choice to play this version of the webhead. While I read the occasional comic book as a kid, I was way more invested in the cartoons and toys during the 90s. I didn't really become a true comic fan until the mid-2000s, when I got completely obsessed with Ultimate Spider-Man. Those first 111 issues with Mark Bagley on art and Brian Michael Bendis writing were some of the most consistently great comic book storytelling I'd ever read. I didn't always stick the landing, and I wasn't a fan of every change, but Ultimate Spider-Man was easily leagues ahead of the other Ultimate titles at the time. At a point when the mainline 616 Spider-Man was bogged down by decades of continuity, confusing retcons, and constant retools to figure out what the right take on the character was, Ultimate Spider-Man felt like a breath of fresh air. Just like the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon it inspired, we followed a younger Peter Parker just starting out his superhero career. Familiar characters like Aunt May, Mary Jane, and Gwen Stacy were reimagined in interesting new ways. And the supporting cast wasn't limited to just the usual Spidey staples. We also got great crossover moments with X-Men characters like Kitty Pryde and Bobby Drake. The Ultimate Universe may be long gone now, but I'm glad I got to experience it during its golden years. I'm even happier that Ultimate Spidey is still getting new stories today.
This new spider sense is a trip. Either I'm not used to it yet, or I'm sensing one of the fragments closing in on me. Nope, I was right. Well, at least I found it.
Finally, our last playable webhead is Miguel O'Hara, the Spider-Man of the futuristic cyberpunk dystopia of Marvel 2099. This world is set in a grim future where massive corporations like the shady megacorp Alchemax have replaced traditional governments, ruling over a society plagued by inequality, corruption, and social decay. It's a high-tech, neon-soaked setting filled with flying cars, towering skyscrapers, and a whole lot of corporate control. In this timeline, the heroes of the past are mostly forgotten or distorted into myths, and the idea of someone standing up for the people feels like a thing of the past. Miguel is a brilliant geneticist working for Alchemax who ends up rewriting his own DNA in an attempt to break free from the company's grip, which naturally results in spider powers. He's not just Peter Parker in a future suit. Miguel is his own man. He's more blunt, less quippy, and not afraid to push back against authority. But just like the original Spidey, he believes in using his powers for good, even if it means standing alone against an entire system. He's one of the most unique and underrated takes on Spider-Man, and seeing him in Shattered Dimensions was a real treat. He's voiced by Dan Gilvezan, who previously played Spidey in the 1980s cartoon, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And while I think he delivers a stellar performance overall, he's probably the one casting choice I say feels a little off. Gilvezan brings a light, jokey energy to the role, honestly even more quippy than Amazing or Ultimate Spidey, which clashes a bit with the more serious, brooding personality Miguel O'Hara is known for in the comics. To be fair, that's probably more of a writing issue than a performance one. It feels like the writers may not have been super familiar with Spider-Man 2099, and just wrote Miguel like the standard Peter Parker most fans know. I never played the follow-up game, Edge of Time, but from what I've heard, Miguel's portrayal in that one sticks much closer to the source material.
Welcome, Spider-Man. Welcome to the jungle. This rock, it holds great power, no? I could use it to crush you, like a bug.
That wouldn't be very sporting of you, would it?
Ah, you speak a great truth. Let it be your prize, then. If you can survive my gauntlet. Your powers against my skills. Your brain against mine. Come, enter my game of death. Claim your trophy, if you dare.
At its core, Shattered Dimensions is a combo-focused beat-em-up that keeps things fast, flashy, and satisfying across all four versions of Spider-Man. While each Spidey has his own unique flair and mechanics, the basics of combat stay consistent between them. You got your standard quick attacks for stringing together fast combos, heavier strikes that hit harder and can break through enemy guards, and aerial moves that let you launch enemies into the air to juggle them, or go airborne yourself to dish out drop kicks or web zip in for a finishing blow. Combat flows really well, and there's a good amount of variety in how you approach encounters, whether you're zipping into the action or stringing together slick air combos. On top of the core combat, you can unlock new combos and abilities as you go, defeating enemies, collecting silver and gold spider icons, and finding hidden gold spiders rewards you with Spider Essence, this game's version of XP. You can spend it to purchase new moves, buff your stats, or unlock alternate costumes for each Spider-Man. Instead of using a traditional skill tree, unlockables are tied to completing in-game challenges. These range from simple tasks like defeating a specific number of enemies, or pulling off certain moves in a row, to more creative ones like web-slinging multiple times without touching the ground or throwing an enemy projectile back at them. It's a bit of an awkward system, since the ease of completing challenges depends heavily on which Spider-Man you're playing and what level you're in, which can slow down progression. But it does offer a decent incentive to replay levels and experiment with different strategies. While the combat in Shattered Dimensions is fun and flashy, it can start to feel a bit repetitive over time. You're often fighting waves of similar enemies, and the combo system, while okay, doesn't evolve much unless you go out of your way to unlock new moves. The camera can also be pretty inconsistent, especially in tight spaces or when enemies surround you, making it easy to lose track of what's going on and breaking the flow of combat. Thankfully, each version of Spider-Man brings their own unique playstyle and abilities to help keep things feeling fresh throughout the game. Amazing Spider-Man has the most traditional moveset, but also the most combo variety. His levels focus more on swinging and maneuverability, and the environments reflect that, giving you more room to move around and chain attacks together. On the opposite end, Spider-Man Noir offers the most unique level design. These missions ditch the bright colors for a muted, shadowy palette that captures the gritty detective noir aesthetic perfectly. Gameplay here borrows heavily from Arkham Asylum with an emphasis on stealth. You're encouraged to stick to the shadows, avoid the light, and silently take down enemies from above or behind. Noir is also noticeably squishier than the others, so if you do get spotted, it's often better to retreat and disappear rather than try to fight head-on. Meanwhile, Ultimate Spider-Man is back in the black suit, whether he likes it or not, thanks to Madam Web rebonding him with the Venom symbiote. The main draw here is Rage Mode, which lets him tap into the symbiote's full power to absolutely tear through enemies. It's great for crowd control and smashing through tougher foes, but it's balanced by a rage meter that needs to be filled first by defeating enemies. Once active, it only lasts a limited time, so knowing when to trigger it becomes key. Finally, Spider-Man 2099 throws players into neon-lit skyscrapers and chaotic freefall sequences where Miguel dive bombs through the sky, dodging debris, flying cars, and chasing down bosses in high-speed pursuits. He also has access to a unique ability called Excel Vision, which slows down time to give him the edge in combat. It's perfect for dodging projectiles, countering enemy attacks, and unleashing rapid combos before enemies know what hit them. Like Rage Mode, it runs on a cooldown meter that needs to be charged, adding a bit of a strategy to when and how you use it. While the core combat can get repetitive, the game's level design does a lot of heavy lifting to keep things feeling fresh. Each level is built around the specific strengths and playstyle of the Spider-Man you're controlling. The game also throws in optional objectives like rescuing civilians, collecting items, or working with NPCs that break up the pacing and give you more to do than just punch waves of enemies. Importantly, the levels avoid feeling like simple hallway brawls. Some areas open up into large, sandbox-style spaces that give you more freedom to explore and approach objectives your way. Amazing Spider-Man's fight with Sandman takes place in a massive, crumbling construction site, filled with verticality and encouraging creative use of web-slinging and exploration. While Ultimate Spider-Man's Deadpool level throws you into a chaotic reality show set on an oil rig, where wide-open arenas let you swing around, dodge traps, and hunt down objectives at your own pace. These moments go a long way in breaking up the monotony.
My disciples. They've come to study at the foot of the master, to learn the art of the hunt from the greatest hunter of all.
And the most modest.
You dare poke me in front of my students?
No, in front of your boy band.
Men, remember what I have taught you. Strike hard, strike fast, and show no mercy.
You have a problem with that?
No, Sensei.
Before we wrap things up, let's talk about one of the highlights of Shattered Dimensions, its boss fights. Each of the scattered fragments of the Tablet of Order and Chaos ends up in the hands of someone from Spidey's Rogues Gallery. Outside of the Noir and 2099 universes, most of these villains are acting independently, using their fragment to power up and push forward their own personal schemes. The game takes this opportunity to reimagine several classic villains across different timelines, and the results are surprisingly creative. Amazing Spider-Man goes up against a bloodthirsty Kraven, who kinda looks like a roided out Dutch Vanderlyn, though some of you pointed out he bears more than a passing resemblance to a buffed up version of Marcus from Borderlands. Which, yeah, I can totally see now. Afterwards, Neil Patrick Harris will have to stop a towering, shape-shifting Sandman, and after that, a rampaging Juggernaut for some reason. Over in the Noir universe, you'll face gritty, reworked versions of Hammerhead, a Nosferatu-inspired Vulture, and a circus freak turned mob boss, Norbin Osborn, or the Goblin as he goes by. 2099's Miguel takes on a cyber-demonic hobgoblin, a monstrous mutated version of Scorpion, and Dr. Serena Patel, a scientist at Alchemex, and this universe's take on Dr. Octopus. Meanwhile, Ultimate Spider-Man squares off against a more brutish, unhinged version of Electro, who's voiced by Tom Wilson of all people. You know, Biff from Back to the Future.
What are you looking at, butthead?
Ultimate Spidey then gets roped into a chaotic reality TV show hosted by Ultimate Deadpool, and finally has to bring down a clone of Ultimate Carnage that's already torn through S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, causing casualties in the hundreds. It's a solid villain lineup overall, and I really like how the game uses the alternate universes to give us a fresh take on classic enemies. Some, like Noir Hammerhead or the female Doc Ock, are unique to Shattered Dimensions, while others, like Ultimate Deadpool, are written way better here than they ever were in their comics. While the regular enemy encounters can start to feel repetitive, the game makes a clear effort to keep boss fights more unique and engaging. Each boss has their own moveset, distinct patterns, and often a gimmick that sets them apart from the standard brawling. Sometimes the stage itself shifts or evolves mid-fight, creating new hazards or requiring a different strategy. On top of that, most bosses make use of their tablet fragment to enhance their powers or unlock entirely new abilities, giving each encounter a sense of escalation. Take Kraven for example. At first, he's not even planning to use his fragment. He just wants to lure Spider-Man in for a one-on-one showdown to prove his superiority. Midway through the level, you step into a cage match where Kraven lunges around the arena, hurls boomerangs for ranged attacks, and triggers spike traps on the floor to catch you off guard. It's a pretty straightforward fight at first. His lunges are easy to dodge, and he leaves himself wide open after each charge. But after you beat him in front of his disciples, Kraven, humiliated by his failure, gives in to the temptation and uses the fragment to enhance himself. He gains super speed, turning the second boss fight that closes the level into something much more intense. The arena becomes more elaborate, filled with traps, and Kraven starts dodging your basic attacks instantly. Now the emphasis shifts towards maneuverability, dodging, timing your counters, and using the environment to your advantage. It's a solid boss battle that not only feels dynamic, but keeps Kraven true to character. A noble hunter obsessed with honor, who breaks his own code when pride gets the better of him. I'm not going to break down every single boss fight, but I do want to highlight a few that stood out to me. The battle against the powered-up Ultimate Electro isn't about going toe-to-toe with him. Instead, it becomes a clever environmental puzzle where you trick him into destroying the dam you're fighting on, ultimately leading to his own downfall. Then there's the fight with the Nosferatu-inspired Noir Vulture, which flips the usual formula by having you manipulate light sources to expose and stun him, giving you just enough time to land some hits before he vanishes into the shadows. Scorpion 2099's fight is another fun one, where you have to dodge his aggressive lunges, deal with waves of minions, and use his own acidic eggs against him to turn the tide. My only real gripe with the boss fights is the repeated use of this awkward first-person punch-out mechanic. At some point in nearly every fight, the game locks you into a close-up view where you trade blows with the boss by mashing buttons. It completely kills the pacing, feels overly simplistic, and honestly just isn't that fun. It doesn't ruin the experience, but it's a noticeable blemish on an otherwise solid lineup of encounters. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions isn't a perfect game, but it's a damn good one. And more importantly, it's a genuine love letter to Spider-Man fans. From the attention to detail and how each version of Spidey is presented, to the way their worlds, powers, and villains are tailored to reflect their comic counterparts, it's clear that the team behind it had a real passion for the source material. The variety in gameplay, art styles, and voice performances helps keep things interesting. And even when the combat gets repetitive, or the controls get a little clunky, it's hard not to appreciate just how much effort went into making this feel like a true celebration of everything Spider-Man. There are definitely some missed opportunities, especially the fact that the different Spider-Men barely interact outside of a brief moment at the end, but that doesn't take away from the fun of hopping between universes and seeing how each one interprets the mythos. Coming back to it years later, I still had a great time, and it's honestly a shame the game isn't more accessible today. Newer fans who only know Spidey through the Insomniac games, or the MCU, are missing out on a really creative and entertaining take on the multiverse long before it became the popular trend it is now. Or was, I should say.
So, what'd I miss?
What the?
Nuff said, kids. Nuff said.
And that's the video. Thanks for watching, folks. And special thanks to my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel, including Alfred Correa, Augie Doggy, Bailey Morrison, Brad Taylor, Chicken D Samurai, Conyer, Eric Lee, Miles Garrett, Skillfuse, SR Powa, Thunder Muffin, and Reckless Nerd. If you would like to support the channel, you can do so for as low as $3 a month, which will give you early access to videos and occasionally uncut videos when I'm forced to censor things for YouTube. Higher tiers will land your name in the credits, or you can receive a verbal shout out at the highest tier. That was another fun one to go back to. I mentioned it in the community post, but Shattered Dimensions was a game I've wanted to discuss as far back as when I founded the channel, so it was nice to knock that off my bucket list. Might do more videos on Spider-Man if you guys are interested. Let me know if you want me to cover Web of Shadows, Ultimate Spider-Man, or the recent Insomniac Spider-Man titles. Next video, and the one that will hopefully close out April, is Days Gone. This should be an interesting one, as while I understand the faults critics had with it at the time, I feel like they were a little too negative. Days Gone is a lot better than they gave it credit, and if I'm being honest, there's a little more going on with it than the more critically acclaimed Horizon Zero Dawn, which might be the big video for next month, so keep an eye out for announcements about that. Again, thanks for watching, folks. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and comment down below. Did you play Shattered Dimensions back in the day? What's your favorite Spider-Man game? What's your favorite alternate version of the webhead? Leave your thoughts down below. We're inching further down the road towards reaching 100k subs this year, so if you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you subscribed. I'm Fuzzy Slippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.